Mary Magdalene was so pushed aside because she was a strong woman who knew what she wanted and she knew Jesus. If I had had the courage when I was younger to see, read, listen, learn, I walked in, and I have a good life. I've been blessed beyond measure. But I think that there were still things that I could have benefited from if I had had the opportunity to explore it.
I'm Lisa Kendall, host of the Global Art Cafe and Global Art Cafe podcast station. Welcome, Helen. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad to be here in your home in Tucson, Arizona, and I look forward to this conversation.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
So tell us a little bit about you.
I am an old lady with a young heart, and I keep looking for ways to find my way. I think that no matter how old we are, we have something to learn.
It's exciting. So we are going to talk about Mary Magdalene and the labyrinth. Do you want to start with the history of the labyrinth a little bit, or what were you thinking?
I think just a little bit. It's much more ancient than most of us would think. It goes back to the 7th century, and it has there's a lot of myth and mystery about that, way back like that.
We were going to talk about Mary Magdalene.
Oh, that's right, Mary Magdalene. I've always been intrigued by Mary Magdalene. I've always thought that we didn't know her at all, and it turns out she's mentioned 12 times in the Bible, more than any other woman besides Mary, the mother of Jesus. She is maligned in the Bible, or not. I mean, we assume from things that we read that she is the Mary that was a prostitute, had demons, and all of these different things that we read about.
Well, people question whether her and Jesus were married.
Yes,
that was one of the myths.
Yes, that is, yeah. And I'm okay with it, whichever way it was. I mean, I really am. It doesn't change it at all.
Okay.
It makes him more human than we have seen him. And sometimes I think we have focused more on his divinity than his humanity. And the more we see him as a human, I think we can understand him more and his teaching. But they were definitely very, very close. I mean, she is called the apostle to the apostles, and her and Jesus had a connection that I don't think he had with any of the apostles. I mean, she was at the cross when he was crucified. She was at the tomb when he was buried. She was there when he rose from the dead, and she was the one who ran to the village to tell people that he was alive, that he had risen. And so she has, next to Mary, his mother, she is definitely the most important woman in the Bible, as far as I can see. That she had more of a relationship with Jesus and understood him more. When you're called the apostle to the apostles, that means
it's a pretty big title.
Yeah.
It should make you curious, at least, to know what about her made her that close to him.
The one thing that I, as a woman, can relate to with Mary Magdalene is how misunderstood she was, and we get that, a lot of that misunderstanding from what is written in the Bible and what has been left out. I wonder if those had been included in our Bible, we would have seen her differently. Why was she pushed aside and not brought into that? Was it because she was a woman? And
what is the truth? And I love that you're open to that thought. And what is the truth?
I don't think there's anything wrong with being open to
understanding. It's a quest to understand what truly happened, and that's a beautiful thing, I think, in faith, to seek what is true.
Yeah.
And she definitely, from the recordings, whether they chose to publish it in the official Bible, clearly there were stories, but stories that recorded what we base our belief on. And it's very interesting to look at them and see how does that apply to our life as a woman, right?
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
I just love learning.
Yes,
and,
me too. I
and
do. Yeah.
so teach us.
Yes, I would not have, as a young woman, I would probably never have even thought about, well, I don't know. I did have kind of a little bit of a spirit inside me that said, don't tell me I can't do that because I'm a woman,
Right.
But on the other hand, I was raised with that, and it only took by growing up that made me realize, that yes, I was definitely told I couldn't do certain things because I was only going to get married and have babies.
Oh,
Which I wanted to do,
right.
but why couldn't I have had a marriage and babies and do something else too? That's why Mary Magdalene was so pushed aside because she was a strong woman who knew what she wanted and she knew Jesus. I mean, she knew him in a way that nobody else did.
So let's talk about her. Like, what did she do that made her so controversial?
Well, she's said to have been a prostitute,
Right.
but I don't buy that.
Is she really, or is that somebody who just doesn't like that she was so close to Jesus?
Yeah, maybe she was comfortable around men.
Yeah.
And so in those days,
She was confident.
Yeah. So, and, a lot of this is just questioning because we weren't there. We don't know, but that's, I think a lot of the Bible is, well, I'm going to get in trouble here. They're stories, like you said,
Right.
and they've been passed down, and they weren't even written for
years
after.
Right.
These things happened, and I think they were definitely divinely inspired. Definitely divinely inspired. I don't doubt or question that at all. But I do question why some things were left out. If you're going
How do you decide? How do they decide certain books of the Bible went to the Apocrypha or didn't even make it on the table?
Yeah.
In a final publication.
Yeah. I'm going to get in trouble here again.
It's okay. Everybody that's here wants to learn and likes to question. We are seekers.
Yes. I relate this to what's going on today with banning books.
Here we go, people.
And we don't learn. I mean, if we don't read and I think about if my children today were questioning things and there were books out there, it would be a great opportunity to sit down at the dinner table and say, well, what is it you like about this book? And then mom and dad having a chance to say, well, I'm glad you read this book, but this is how I see it. It gives you a chance to discuss this and learn about it and see how your child feels about it, instead of putting all those books in a big urn and burying it, like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
And so I guess, I'm going to be 78 in a few weeks.
You can say whatever you want.
And thank you. If I had had the courage when I was younger to see, read, listen, learn, I walked in, and I have a good life. I've been blessed beyond measure. But I think that there were still things that I could have benefited from if I had had the opportunity to explore it.
What would you have liked to have explored?
Well, I am not college educated, and I would have liked that, but I was told by my family that it was wasted money because I was going to get married and have babies.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that would have been it. But I think I would have not studied what I think I would have studied all those years ago. I would have been more into maybe theology and religious studies and psychology and things like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected that of the young Helen at all. No, no, no. She would not have been interested in that history at all.
Right.
But the elderly, I'm called elderly, uh, she
Yeah.
would be interested.
Yeah.
You know, she's interested in that. So
You read so much, and I love what, when you share what you're reading. It's so insightful. And I think, like what you were saying, is it would be a shame, or it is a shame, when we protect the younger generation from reading certain things, because then you can't have a conversation. How do you shape that mind to know even right from wrong if they can't take it in? It's almost like being in a bubble. How are you going to handle a situation if you haven't had a few bumps along the way? If you don't challenge your mind, how do you decide what you believe and what you value?
absolutely, you can't, you know,
Right? So that's taking away that opportunity for really growth and a deeper life experience.
yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did we talk about with Mary and the labyrinth that we want to share?
Well, I think she was on a journey, and the labyrinth is a metaphor for journey. It's it's a well, I think much like the reason that they were built in Europe was because they wanted to have a metaphor for a pilgrimage,
Mm-hmm.
and most of us can't do that. You know, we can't go to the Holy Land or Mecca or uh, any of the other pilgrimages that there are many different ones around the world. So it is definitely a metaphor for a life journey.
Labyrinth. What do you think Mary Magdalene's message for every woman would be if you could sum it up?
Believe in yourself, honor your differences, love like Jesus.
Mm. And she was bold and
She was bold and confident, definitely.
be willing to be the woman that speaks up, really,
Yeah,
and not afraid to be controversial if you have that
yeah,
gift.
absolutely.
There's a lot there that I think a lot of women out there would be good to learn from. What, regardless of your faith
Yeah,
story, this is a woman in history, period, who stood up for her faith and has been questioned for it, and not really given credit for how bold and courageous she was.
Did she even know what faith was?
I think she was living her life.
Yes, exactly it, I think. You know, and I
Ooh,
think
where's the message in that, right?
Yeah.
So how we live our lives, regardless of outer circumstance.
Yeah.
How do you be authentically yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big one.
It is. Back like that. My husband and I had the privilege to take a cruise that took us to Greece last year. And I was so excited because we were going to go to Crete, which is where the Seven Circus classical Cretan labyrinth comes from.
Which is what we have at SoulQuest.
Yes, and I have a smaller one in my backyard
Yes.
because I don't have a very big backyard.
Mhm.
But I was disappointed because what I had heard and read about it wasn't really true. It came from the ruins of this huge castle. And it turns out that there wasn't really a labyrinth. I think it came from the word maze, which is often confused with labyrinth. A maze is made to deliberately confuse you and make you lose your way, whereas a labyrinth, the same way in is the same way out. There's no getting lost in there. It's a safe place to be. Where this castle was like a maze of rooms. There were just so many rooms and so many people lived there and things. And that's where it came from. But yet in Crete, there you will find coins that were made in the shape of a seven circuit classical labyrinth.
At the place in Crete?
Well, not right there, but you can find them in Greece that they are called the Cretan
So it was
labyrinth.
inspired by that?
I think so. That's
Okay.
my best interpretation. I mean, I have read so much about this over the years that I'm still confused as to why they say that it was in Crete, and
Yeah.
it's in the town or the village or of Knossos, Knossos,
Mm.
is where this the ruins of this castle
Mm.
are. And I was disappointed that I couldn't find a labyrinth.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there were coins that were stamped with that pattern. So there
Interesting.
still has to be some connection, I think.
Mm.
But what it is, I don't know. It seems like the more I research, the more I learn or relearn or unlearn, about something. Because I was sure I was going to find it. I was sure
It's
it was
like
going to be
looking
there.
for a treasure and it's
Yeah,
not there.
yeah.
I remember you texting me last year ago. It wasn't what I thought.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
is disappointing.
But that's okay because I
Now we
think
need to find
it
out.
still evolved from there, and but the history of, let's say, that 11th Circuit shark that I was talking about that was at my church, that one is real as it can be. And
Right.
it's still there since 1201, I think, is the date. And that's in Chartres, France. And my husband and I had the privilege of going there some years back. And it was just an amazing opportunity because I got to see it for real. And you could see that it was ancient because the stones were worn smooth. And if you should ever have the privilege or honor to go there, remember that it's only open to the public on Friday mornings when they remove the chairs. A lot of your European churches don't have pews, they have chairs. So they move the chairs out so that people can walk it. And it's interesting because Lauren Artris, that we've talked about from San Francisco, she went over there and the bishop didn't even know what a labyrinth was at that time.
Yeah, that was many years ago.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, like I think it was the 80s when she
started her journey.
Yeah. And so it was because of her influence that now people can walk that. And
it's once a week, right? Isn't it like Fridays or?
Yeah, Friday mornings it's open to the public to watch because they'll remove the chairs. But just be aware of that because if I hadn't known that, it would have been so disappointing to have had one day there and it not be available. But it was amazing. There were a lot of people walking it, and you could just imagine all the people that had walked that because of the way it was worn. But the reason they were in there, there were 20 some cathedrals throughout Europe who built these in the floors of their parishes, their churches, because as Christians, we were expected to go to the Holy Land for a pilgrimage every year, or at least once in our lifetime, much like the Muslims go to Mecca these days and have always done that. And so during the Crusades, then it became too dangerous for people to make this journey to the Holy Land. So the Roman Church built about 20 some of them in the floors of their cathedrals throughout Europe. And roughly, I've been read and told that it's like 20 some. There's only a few that are left today. We don't know why, but there's really not very much that's written about it. But there's the Chartres, Amiens, if I'm pronouncing that right, and Reims in all three in France.
Okay.
And we did go to all of them. But the Chartres was the most powerful of all of them. It was almost as if there was, I don't know, an energy there that you don't get everywhere.
Now, were the other labyrinths a different style, or were
they? They were. I think they were like a sort of like a shark, but one of them is an octagon shape.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember whether that's Amiens or Reims. I think it's because I was taken with the shark one so much that I didn't pay that much attention to the others. And nobody was walking the others either. And one of them, you weren't able to walk it. And, you're walking it and suddenly somebody walks across it because they don't know what it is.
And those were also inside the cathedrals.
Yes. But we don't even know why there's only those few left. It could have been that suddenly people could go back to the Holy Land now. So the church thought, well, we don't need this anymore.
Hmm.
And there could have been that some of the churches were destroyed during wars,
Sure.
various things. But we find that too with labyrinths. You've talked about being a labyrinth caretaker.
Mhm.
And if we don't have a caretaker, whether it's a church or a backyard, that if you don't have a caretaker, you can lose it.
Well, I'm so glad that we finally made this time, and
This has been fun.
I'm so glad we had the time to connect today and talk about it.
Me too.
Thank you.
Me too. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Global Art Cafe at Soul Quest Retreat with your host, artist and author Lisa Kindle. Soul Quest Retreat is a place of peace in the desert, and the Global Art Cafe is a creative community with members around the world. Want to know more? Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Look for Soul Quest Retreat or Lisa Kindle Art. Helen is a wealth of knowledge, and in addition to just a riveting conversation, she left us with some great things to ponder. We talked about the myths, the mysteries, and the truths of Mary Magdalene. Is she a mystic? Author Elaine Pagels believes that that's the perception of Mary Magdalene that the early church adhered to. The Gnostic writing, which was widely circulated among the Christians throughout the Mediterranean, depict her as something of a mystic who had visions and was privy to some of Jesus' most esoteric teachings. According to tradition, after the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ, it's because of this tradition that the Orthodox Christians exchanged red eggs at Easter in the presence of a large crowd. St. Mary began talking to Caesar about the resurrection of Christ. She picked up an egg from the dinner table to illustrate her point about the resurrection. Caesar was not convinced and replied, "There is as much chance of a human being returned to life as much as there is a chance for the egg you're holding to turn red." Immediately the egg miraculously turned red. Or was she an adulteress? Gregory the Great seemed to think so, and he said so. Mel Gibson wanted us to think so in the movie The Passion of the Christ. However, the details in the Bible are not enough to conclude that the adulteress is Mary Magdalene. Was she Mary of Bethany, the sister of Martha and Lazarus? Was she the woman who anoints Jesus with expensive oil? Is she the penitent woman who anoints Jesus' feet with the tears and ointment? Was she the spouse of Jesus? What we do know is that she was mentioned more times in the Bible than any other woman besides Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was mentioned more than most of the apostles. According to the 4 Gospels, she traveled with Jesus as one of his followers. She helped support his ministry, indicating she had some wealth. She was thought of as the apostle to the apostles. She was a witness to his crucifixion and resurrection. In fact, she was the first to find the tomb empty. When he appeared to her, she did not recognize him. She thought he was a gardener. Some of the confusion was probably because the name Mary was very common. As we hear them in the Bible, we are confused and wonder whether Mary of Bethany is the same as Mary Magdalene. They are not, but it is believed that they were close friends. So how do we identify with Mary today? Have you ever felt misunderstood? Has anyone ever spread rumors about you? Has anyone ever taken your past and judged you by it? Have you ever had a relationship with someone that was misunderstood? Has anyone blamed you for something unfairly?